Okay, can we get ready to go?
We'll get started. We're going to call this meeting to order.
Yep.
And I have the great pleasure of introducing Kate Smith as our Executive Director and President of the Majors Fund. And she's been with us for now, what is it, about 4 months or so?
6 months.
6 months, that's right, in December. I think in June, we're in June.
June 9th I think today is actually my 6-month anniversary.
There you go. Congratulations. And
Nice. Amazing.
and the partnership that Kate and Lorea and the team have built is just a dream come true. Thank you for your dedication and for all the way we've done thus far, and for hitting the ground running, and for bringing us to this point, along with the work that Lorea did when she was supporting the entire team for a bit. So thank you, and thank you for saying yes.
Thank you. Okay, I would like to call this meeting to order. I would like to ask if there's a motion from the board to approve the minutes of the April 8th, 2025 meeting of Board of Directors.
Motion to approve.
Second. So, all in favor of the adoption, say aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed, say nay. Okay, the motion is passed. I will now be moving on to new business. I'll turn over control of the meeting to Lorea to discuss the fund's annual budget.
Great. The budget's actually on page 7 if you want to turn to that so you can see what I'll be speaking to. And I apologize. My voice gets low. I have a cold, so just let me know and I'll try to talk louder. For FY26, we are proposing a balanced budget of $11.275 million in revenue. And this projection reflects a stable trend consistent with their average revenue over the past 3 years. So no big significant shifts in the revenue streams that are anticipated, but do want to call out that you'll see foundations are primarily what's driving our support and our strongest and most reliable source of funding. Kate can speak a little bit more to this, but we are focused on increasing our corporate and individual sponsorship. But about on average, it takes 6 months from when we begin conversations and actually see funding come in. So while we're working on increasing support from those revenue streams, we're really focused on, especially for budgeting purposes, being realistic about what funds can come in.
Could,
you have a question?
Yeah, you said the contributions are in line with last fiscal year?
Yeah, on average, for other than in 2022 where we saw spikes from relief efforts, It's been between 10 to 12 million per year.
It would be helpful for me, at least, if we could see like what was the fiscal year, what was the prior fiscal year budget, what's this one. I guess this is, or let me put it this way: it would be great if we could also see how we're doing in this fiscal year.
Yeah,
like a year.
What was projected? What was projected and actual?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I can provide that. Our books aren't closed. This is actually one of our bigger months. We're following up with receivables, but that is something I know we've talked about in the past as well, that every month we are doing projections, and we actually give those to DM Anna as well. So that's something I can share as follow-up with the board, is where we are for this fiscal year. I will say now, overseeing the budget personally, this is probably one of our more realistic budgets.
Yeah.
Compared to the past, we really tried to ground it in, and that's why you see it so closely balanced, is what we know is achievable. We, of course, are setting higher goals, but this is something that we feel confident we have a path to, and really realistic based on our past performance for expenses as well. But I can definitely follow up with budget to actual from previous fiscal years to the board.
Thanks. It just helps me contextualize and visualize the budget.
Yeah, absolutely. Hi, Lorraine.
Hi.
Hey, Spring. We're just talking through the budget on page 7. So the only piece about
I'm sorry, that's about, I keep adjusting my volume. Am I too loud?
No,
not going, no. Okay, so when you were cutting up on your projections for fiscal year 26, I know you wanted to, do something that was really realistic of like past trends. How far back did you go? And I'm just asking because I know during the pandemic, like money was spiked. Yep, sure, foundations, other charitable organizations. So how far back did you go coming up the fiscal year 26 projections?
So we've looked holistically, but then really focused on specifically the past 3 years in this administration. We know that in 2022, we had a spike because of Bronx fire relief efforts. And then similarly, even in 2023, for the migrant response, we also had an increase in some emergency relief. And so we really focused on the trends that we saw across our main revenue channels, which for foundations, corporate, and then some of the earned income you see here, like interest, admin fees, those have largely stayed the same year over year.
Yeah, and just to jump in, I think when thinking about a budget, I like to think about a budget without disaster relief or whatever, without incidents like that, because it may not happen again, or it may, but I think it's more conservative to think about, as Lorea was saying, the budget without a specific incident, which do tend to bring in more money.
Right, not focusing on outliers. I'm certainly a supporter of that.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and we absolutely, on average, is at least one relief effort that our team responds to per administration. We obviously don't hope that they happen, but can respond and even have. Are there any other questions in terms of the revenue before we talk about expenses?
Yeah.
I do.
Okay.
I had asked to see the 25 as well.
Okay, great.
But can you tell us who are our major donors?
You mean individual donors or which channel?
I'm kind of talking about all.
Well, I can, and to speak to foundations, I mean, there's so many foundations, but really Robin Hood, Trinity, Altman,
New York Community Trust.
New York Community Trust, Tisch Illumination Fund.
Great.
We can also do a list of sort of the top 10. Diamond Foundation this year, the Diamond Family Foundation. Individuals is mostly right now our board of advisors. And this year
I see.
This year we have really upped. We've just sent out invoices for all the dues. And so this year, since we've re-engaged a lot of the board of advisors, we had our board of advisors meeting. We actually do hope to bring in, this is for next year, but we hope to bring in more money because they are engaged again.
And I just want to make a request. Can we be invited to a board of advisor meeting?
Sure.
Just I think you don't.
Yeah.
I don't feel connected to them at all, and I think ideally we would feel connected.
I think that's a great idea, and we've only had the one. And sorry about that, but absolutely. And I think we'll look for the next one to be probably end of September, early October.
Yeah,
but that's a great idea. I think.
And two things. So when you were talking about the foundations, these are outliers, or is this already grants committed or approaches made? I mean, I just want to get a sense of the $7 million that we expect from foundations. That is.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so I would say it's a combination of both. So we have about $9 million in opportunities that are pending approval or decisions right now. Okay. That even just between Q1 and Q2 of FY26. So that's early that we would have decisions. And then I'd say on average, the team is following up with opportunities, submitting proposals or LOIs for at least $1 million a month. So I think we have a strong path to this. Again, realistically, Kate and I want to build a path to 12 to 15 million per year. But knowing we have a newer team, I think a big piece too is we've seen, particularly as we're talking about different segments like corporate and individual, with federal changes, stock market volatility, people and corporations, both interest and ability to give continues to fluctuate. Mm-hmm. So that's why we've really focused on grants. But we've also seen that because of that, grant processes are very competitive right now because there's an increased demand. But I think we have a really robust pipeline already, and a lot of even some things that we thought were coming in for FY25, we already know we'll be getting in FY26.
Okay, good. Thank you for that.
Oh, I'm sorry. I was also going to say we can grow the board of advisors, and we are already have about 5 in the pipeline being vetted. And one of my goals is to grow the individual channel outside of the board of advisors, and we're starting to do that by meeting with corporations, but then getting to know the individuals that make up that corporation. So not only corporate funding, but because that's where there is still some capacity are these individuals in the private equity and individuals.
Yeah, the corporate money right now is so iffy because unless we present it as unmet needs or greatest need, everybody's very afraid of targeted money. So
Absolutely.
That being said, of course, I'm going to contradict myself in 2 seconds, meaning when we go to corporations and foundations, some of them may want us to have a focus for the city. Of course, there'll be young people, future, after school, older adult working opportunities. I think that when we market what we are offering, I think we should also market those segments. Domestic violence, public safety, because public safety is not just police protection. It's also elder abuse. It's also fraud. It's so that we should start thinking about the other themes that we could weave into our requests so that if they can't do this, maybe they'll have an interest in that. And that's the beauty of a fund like this one.
Yeah. And the great thing now that we have a full team, we have the ability now to do a lot more prospecting and research on the donors we're going to meet with. So absolutely to look at other things they've given to, look at what their interests are. So we go with, as you're saying, multiple ideas that the corporation might be interested in. And I think that's absolutely fair. And they usually do want something more.
They want something more specific than to give to the city or the fund. It's open way. Well, but I also think that we as a fund should be doing a lot more due diligence as to what are those areas that our agencies have an interest that public dollars cannot support also. So that's another way that we may be able to position some of this.
Yeah, and I think Kate's actually done a great job that the formula we usually have with potential funders is doing that prospect research, so we're prepared going into a call of what we may think and have those opportunities identified. But also, I think a beauty of our function with the city is that we find out what they are focused on and what problems they want to solve, and then we have the relationships with the agencies in order to come back and say, okay, these are the key areas they're willing to fund. ENDGBB, we know you're working on this. Like, we have someone who can give $25,000. Let's work on a proposal. And so I think it's a combination of that. And now that she said, because
there was a group, and I'm sorry, now stop. There was a group in the board of advisors who had an interest in older women and hunger. I remember it was that specific, and I said, okay, I can find you for older ladies. Yeah. But that, and then it was lost. And so, I mean, I think that they're still there. So if we could generate that kind of an interest again, I think it helps us all.
Mm-hmm. I agree.
Thanks.
Can you just give us an idea about the corporate? You mentioned the foundation, sending the top 10 or whatever, but what are some of the corporations?
You guys help me here. So JP Morgan Chase, right now we're working with Wells Fargo we just have something out to them, hopefully $1.5 million. Blanking on some of the others.
I think with the relaunch of our soccer initiative, we're also seeing a lot of
private equity.
Okay.
We're met with, that is actually bunch of private equity firms, real estate. SL Green is one that we're actually vetting someone for the board of advisors. They're interested in soccer. They're interested in the parade, the United Parade.
Mm-hmm.
Some of the law firms.
We can provide a list too.
Right. Uber. Yeah, Uber is another one we're about to meet with that's going to do a lot of in-kind too.
Okay.
A lot of in-kind and a lot of I just met with Salesforce, who right now is not ready to write big checks, but they are willing to donate space for events and things like that, which I'm actually going on Monday to see the space. And that is an in-kind. That goes to the Orioles. Yankees. And like they're all Yankees are doing a big in-kind gift for college for the first day of school. So
Great.
but we can get you more or less.
That's great. Okay. And some of the work that the team has been doing is rebuilding those relationships with the agencies.
Yes.
To make sure that whatever ideas agencies are thinking about, as Maria mentioned, then there is resources there to the match, at least in the engagement process, the potential donors.
Right. Okay. And can I just ask a question? What is under general support? Like, where does that come from?
So the general support is what we've called civic innovation, and that's more towards some of our operating funds, or like Commissioner Cortez Vasquez mentioned, it's, they're giving to the mayor's fund for something that's maybe a bit more unrestricted. So it's a smaller bucket, but we do, I think particularly that's something we see towards the end of the year sometimes with donors that have a certain amount that they need to spend and give.
Okay.
The only other piece on the revenue side that I did want to call out is we're looking at earned income and is towards operating funds, is just speak to our investment. I know that's something that comes up quite often. Wendy, who's our treasurer, was unable to make it, but she and I have talked about the budget. And so we can follow up as needed too. But we still are in the Bernstein Immediate Duration Portfolio, which is a bond index fund that has been performing in line with expectations. And we did make the strategic decision to not move it, particularly with the market volatility, which worked out really well. We did get about a 4.5% yield and almost $500,000 in operating funds. So that was helpful, particularly in this last year while we were rebuilding the team. And I think that's the conversation now that we'll be bringing back to the board, is we know that was a short-term solution that really enables us to have some beneficial support for our budget, but didn't really allow for equity growth. And so that is something that we want to focus on. And that'll be a conversation about the more we can build up our other revenue streams so we're not depending on that income, the more that we can be strategically investing that in growth-focused funds. But it's performed well. We've actually gained some, again, it changes month to month, but we're in a good position, and glad that we didn't move it.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, especially in this back tumultuous period. Yeah, I guess we're all the.
Just moving to expenses, one thing I did want to call out is that our personnel and fringe really is still our largest operating expense at about $1.5 million. However, something that I think we're really proud of is that 93% of our total budget is programmatic or initiative focused. So we're definitely meeting our mission. The industry benchmark for nonprofits is 75%. So for every dollar we raise, we're only keeping 7 cents to operate. So we're very lean still, even with restaffing.
Yeah.
And I do think, or when we do our audit in the fall, I think we'll be closer to 90%, but that's actually a health indicator for us because we need to be continuing to invest in our staff, into oversight and administration. So moving closer to an 85, 90% actually means that we're getting to a more mature, healthy place. But I do want to call that out that, yes, while our personnel expenses are increasing a bit, primarily because just cost of healthcare is increasing and along those fringe pieces, but we're still very lean. And when we're raising money, it's 93% of it's going directly to New Yorkers. So we have no staffing changes planned at this point. So there's no increases or reductions there. And then the program expenses we have listed here is, again, this is a projection based on our current active grants. It's not a one-to-one with the revenue we bring in because sometimes there's no cost extensions or it's multi-year work that's being completed. But this feels in line with what we have planned for the year.
Can you give me just clarify for me? This New York City contract, does the city give an amount of money to the fund
Yes, we have a contract that we are in procurement right now with the city as the fund that is utilized for this partnership.
And so, and what amount is that? That's the 700,000.
Yes, it's quarterly.
Because that's also obviously, you know this better than I do. It's an excellent marketing point. Well, you know, the city contributes, 3% of this, so you're not the sole investor. And then the other point is that, and we are also lean.
Yeah.
And below market, in terms of administrative fees. So because a fund is a hard thing to sell.
Mm-hmm.
But, like if you sell it as these public-private partnerships and the partnership is really investing in it, meaning the public part is really investing in it. It's a good sellable point,
That's everything I had in terms of the budget. Are there any other questions? Or Dawn, do you have any questions?
I don't.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I would like to ask a motion for the board to adopt the fund's budget for the 2026 fiscal year.
I move.
Second. Okay, all in favor of the adoption of the budget, say aye.
Aye.
And anyone opposed, say nay. Okay, the motion is passed.
Abstentions? See that? You have to ask us any abstentions.
Any abstentions?
Okay. There's nobody will question.
The next item on the agenda is the consideration of the appointment of Luis Martinez as director of the board. Luis has a wealth of experience in public safety, and both as a civil servant and in the nonprofit sector. You should all have seen Luis's resume, which is in your board book.
Yeah.
Right? I would like to ask if there is a motion for the board to recommend Luis Martinez for appointment as a director on the Mayor's Fund Board of Directors.
I move to make that recommendation.
I second.
I guess motion made. Did I miss vote?
Should we vote?
Vote? Yeah, that's sorry. That's okay. You're hanging. You let me hang. That's okay. Let's vote. Sorry, that's okay. Let's vote for Luis Martinez for appointment as a director on the Mayor's Fund Board of Directors. All in favor?
Aye. Strong aye.
Don't I, indeed.
Okay.
People, I listen.
Okay. The motion is passed.
Yeah. So I spent some time, just as a side note,
Yes.
where when Lewis was working with Laura Kavanaugh as commissioner at the fire department, I spent a significant amount of time working with him, and and I know his resume goes far beyond things I didn't even know, actually. Yes. But just from my time working with him out of the commissioner's office, he was.
I was just going to say, and my absolute admiration for Laura makes that she has him as his chief of staff is a great state.
Exactly. So,
Great.
he's terrific.
Is there any new business? Any more new business? Anybody? If no, we are adjourned. Now that we have ended new business, I would like to ask for a motion to adjourn. I move. Motion.
Second.
All in favor say aye. All opposed say nay. Meeting adjourned. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Once they move.